Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Red Rocket is a new movie out now and streaming, written and directed by Sean Baker, the man that brought us The Florida Project, as well as Tangerine. He is a director in a lot of ways that proves you don't need a big studio or a big budget to tell interesting and affecting films. Also has the ability to take people with zero acting ability, or not necessarily ability, but people that aren't actors, putting them into his films and getting amazing performances out of them. We saw that in Florida Project, obviously. You saw that all over the place in Tangerine. A lot of people in these movies, not all the characters, but a lot of them are not your traditional actors, or it's their first time ever acting. And usually there's an actor or two in there that is more of a seasoned vet. But primarily, most of the performances are done by people that don't have a lot of experience acting. And it just goes to show Sean Baker's ability to really get amazing performances out of people, which is important. There's a lot of huge directors, gigantic directors that studios put billions of dollars behind that can't do what this guy does. I mean, and even like to the point of Tangerine, where it was filmed completely on an iPhone. Like, he just goes to show that there are no rules when it comes to making art, when it comes to telling a story. You don't need to have a 70 millimeter film camera in order to tell a compelling story. Now, is it cool when directors do that kind of stuff? Sure it is. Does it have a different look? Sure it does. But it doesn't mean you can't tell stories. It doesn't mean you can't be a director. It doesn't mean you can't be a successful director by just using the things that are around you in everyday life, whether it's just people, putting them in your movie, or using your phone, which I appreciate quite a bit. And I love it. It also gives his films more of an authentic, grounded, real vibe than most movies. And a lot of his subject matter, Sean Baker's movies, are people who, like, real salt of the earth people that are struggling to survive in a capitalist society known as America. Like, these are poor people, like, desperately trying to just survive. And when you are a person trying to survive without money in this reality that we're living, you tend to be in and around a lot of criminal elements. You tend to be around a lot of degenerates. You tend to be around a lot of people with a lot of addictions. All of these people tend to pool up when you are poor. And, you may not have become poor because of those things, but because of the way society is structured, you end up all existing in the same kind of place, which, in its own way, this film takes place in a small town in Texas, a refinery town. The refinery is prominent in a lot of shots. There's a lot of times where your characters are going, walking around, traveling from one area to another. It's like a small town, but it's all spread out. And there's always this factory, these giant refinery types of buildings in the background. At night, you see all the lights that are on in the factory. During the sunset, you're seeing the smoke from the refinery kind of billowing into the sky and affecting the sunset in a way, which adds like a weird, strange beauty to the skyline of this film. Right? Similarly to the types of characters that Sean Baker has in his films, they are not necessarily the most, classically beautiful people, right? These are people that have lived hard lives. Maybe not, but they look like they've lived hard lives. But there's a level of beauty. The way they live their lives is not beautiful. They are not living in a, privileged way. But the way they are living and their surroundings, there is beauty to be found in those areas, in those crevices, in those times where people are desperate and just trying to survive and do what they can, trying to do the best they can with what they have, with the resources they have around them. So all of those things combined, I'm a fan of this guy, and I enjoyed this movie, despite the fact that the main character is a horrible person. This is a parasitic lead in this film, played by Simon Rex. Obviously, if you've heard about this film, it's constantly being said his performance is amazing. And I agree. I think as far as his character, Simon Rex portraying a washed-up porn star who's like at the bottom of his barrel, having to go back to his hometown, having to go back to a wife that he left. You know, when he stopped feeding on the life force of these people and went to LA to become whatever he wanted to become and eventually became a porn star, he left them behind. He is now back because he ruined things in LA. Because he's a parasite. And you see that. Throughout this film is him going back, and now this small town, the people of this small town are now what he is feeding on. They are now his host. And similarly, those types of people, those parasitic humans, those emotional vampires, those energy vampires that exist around everybody, they have the same shtick. They all have the same shtick. They have tons of stories that just elaborately give themselves excuses for their behavior. These stories, these like epic quests where they are not only at one point the hero, but also the victim. Like, they love to play the victim when it serves their purpose, and they love to be the hero in their own mind. The world is out to get them when things aren't going well, and they have the world wrapped around their finger when they are figuring things out, when they're feeding off of a new host. So he's not good. But that's what you find. If you've ever spent time, if you've ever lived a life where you've been around people like this, like I have, most of my 20s, a lot of my friends in my 20s were people that are very similar to all of the people that are in all of Sean Baker's movies. And I haven't seen all of his movies. I've only seen Florida Project and Tangerine. But, like, I am well-versed in degenerates, in people that just don't. A lot of them have mommies and daddies that take care of them. And anytime that, like, they have no ability to be on their own, they have no, like, ability to be responsible adults. There's very little to no maturity going on in any of their lives. The arrested development of these people that are just hedonists. They're just looking to make themselves feel better in the moment. You know? And that's what this guy is. So on that level, like, there's a lot of people that I like remind me of people that used to be friends. Like, that's the thing. It's like, it's one thing to, like, have a life and be around these people, and it's like there's moments where it's fun to be around people that fly off the handle, that are like crazy. They can add a lot of interesting drama to your life, which not necessarily the healthiest thing. You have to, at some point, remove yourself from that situation. You need to, at some point, remove yourself from those toxic, parasitic people. Because they don't want you to break free from the reality of hell that they've constructed around themselves. The Many Faces is an ongoing abstract ink portrait series that I started many years ago. I release a new face every day, but go to inspireddisorder.com to check them out. So many available. But as a listener to The Ray Taylor Show, you can save 10% when you use coupon code INSPIRED when you check out. So go to inspireddisorder.com/TMF. That stands for The Many Faces. Go check them out, browse the entire collection, and when you decide on a piece, or maybe multiple pieces, make sure you use coupon code INSPIRED when you check out, and you'll save 10%. As a big thank you for checking out my work, for collecting my work, and for listening to The Ray Taylor Show. And with that said, let's get back to the show. Simon Rex plays this guy, Mike Saber, washed-up porn star, back in his small Texas town, trying to... It's kind of like a comeback story in some ways. You know, he's trying to... It actually, in a lot of ways, it actually kind of reminded me of Nightmare Alley. Or what would have been... What I think Nightmare Alley, the story of that movie, is trying to portray. Where you have, like, this character who is kind of... He's moving, he's going, he's becoming part of this new group of people, like this new host, and he's not a good person. He's a parasite. And he uses his new situation to kind of suck the life out of and use to his advantage as much as possible. To the point where he oversteps his bounds. He goes over the line. And when he goes over the line, it all comes crashing down. And this person that's a bad person that has found success feeding off of these other people around him loses it all. Flew too close to the sun. And again is running. And again is at his bottom, starting over. I mean, they end this... The story is slightly different, but overall, it's kind of very similar vibes. And I just watched the remake of Nightmare Alley, which is okay, but I had some issues with it. This one, like, felt very similar, but way better. Like, way better writing, way more realistic everything in this. From, like, how people act and how they, you know, just how they function and all these different things. But yeah, he's not a good person. And he starts to feed off of this town. He needs to make money to help, like, support his wife that he's not divorced from. He just left her to go be a porn star. She's living with her mom. I'm assuming they're living off of disability of some sort, some government thing, which is fine. You know, there should be far more government aid to people to help them live and survive. But, you know, when you're living off of government subsidies, unless you're a giant corporation, like if you're just a human being, which is not valued at all in this country, if you are just a human being that's struggling, it's not an easy life to live off of government subsidies. Now, if you're a giant corporation and you fail, it's no problem. You'll just get bailed out. Everybody gets their bonuses. It's almost as if nothing goes wrong. And in some cases, it's like an improvement to fail. It's actually like you fail up in a lot of ways if you're a major corporation. But if you're a human in this society, if you're a human who, for whatever reason, needs help, you're treated like a criminal, and you're given the bare minimum to survive, if that. So now they have this other parasite coming to town, old Mikey Saber. And he's trying to get work. He can't get any work. He has horrible employment. I mean, he's got a bad... He's not a highly sought after worker. Like, there's not a lot of businesses that are looking for a guy that's somehow fucked up everything, was at one point a porn star, but, like, is looking for, like, bottom of the barrel, like, entry-level jobs. Like, it's not working out for him. So he ends up going to sell weed, which just happens. It's like selling weed, especially in a lot of areas like Texas, a lot of areas where it's illegal, where you're selling it on the black market. That's a degenerate's, like, first business. They are entrepreneurs. They are starting off their first business selling weed. And it's sad that, like, that is, like, the go-to thing. Selling any kind of illegal thing is, like, the only thing left for people to do because they're not employable anywhere. So they have to go and sell weed, which he's done before, does again. He's got the hookups. It's no big deal, right? It's like the one thing he doesn't like. It's these people, these parasites, they don't fail at everything. Like if it's something that really would benefit them in the moment, then they can kind of do it. Like he can sell weed. Now, what is he spending that weed on? He's not giving it to his wife and her mom to try and help pay bills. He's hanging out with his old buddy, going to strip clubs, telling him stories about all of these porn stars that he's hooked up with, really showing the hero aspect of how he's just such an epic dude. And then there's one scene where he's going with his buddy, his old buddy, that they go to the strip clubs. There's one thing, he's going to a mall. They go to a mall, right? His buddy's going to a mall because he's going to do some shit. He's going to go shopping. I don't know. Mike Saber goes along with him. Turns out the dude, his buddy, which I don't know, I'm going to do this and it's going to be horrible because his name's not going to show up because there's no pictures of anybody because nobody's a real actor. His like neighbor, his like childhood friend kind of, Ethan, so Lonnie, I think is his name, is wearing like fatigues. And I think he's like selling or asking for donations at the mall, selling little American flags. And he gets called out by these guys because he's faking it. It's stolen valor. He's pretending to be a military vet in order to get money, and he got found out, called out, and jumped. And of course, our lead, instead of being like compassionate about this guy who, was doing something bad, like everybody is not a good, everybody's like has their own faults. Nobody is perfect in this kind of reality, in this universe that we're living in this movie. But instead of showing this dude who is supposedly his friend compassion, like, I'm sorry that happened to you, maybe you shouldn't be doing that, he acts like he is now the victim. Like his buddy just got beat up. Yeah, it was for probably the right reasons, maybe not getting beat up, but whatever. You have Mr. Saber acting like he's the victim. Like you could have hurt him if it found out that that he was like, he's trying to use like this pseudo fame that he has from being a porn star as if his reputation is going to be tarnished by hanging out with this guy pretending to be a military vet. It's just another example of that type of parasitic person that's always like boasting about how they're how they're like this amazing, heroic, great dude, and have lived this amazing life. And yet they play victim the instant that they want to manipulate a situation. So on like all these levels, like everything is so accurate. Like the writing, like Sean Baker is somebody who understands humans who live these kinds of lives in a way that no movie, like there's little to no movies that understand this kind of lifestyle like Sean Baker. They're either way over dramatic, the writing isn't on point. They don't nail it like this guy does. And I think that's why I like it, despite the fact that the main character is so reprehensible. But I think that's the thing. You're not really supposed to be cheering for this guy. You're just seeing him try. You're seeing a parasite look for a new host. And when he finds his new host, it's not good because you know what's going to happen. You know the type of person he is. You know what's going to happen, especially if you know that type of person in your life. If you have people in your life that are similar in some ways to this guy, when he finds his new host, this little 17-year-old girl who's working at a donut shop, he's like, oh, that's my new host. And he starts he's got all these ideas of how he's going to, groom her to be a porn star. Because, during his stories of telling his buddy, going to the strip clubs, going to the mall, these things, he's got all these stories about how he was the one to make all these porn stars famous. It's not the female porn stars that are famous. It's the male porn stars that make them famous, which, if you know anything about the porn industry, not at all true. Like, the big money makers in porn are women. It's not the dudes. Usually porn stars will work with the same dudes. So it's, when he says like, oh, I worked with these porn stars multiple times because that's just how I did it to make them big. It's like, no, he's like, they take like realistic things. It's the same thing with like people that regurgitate propaganda or this like scientific misinformation stuff. They take like the infrastructure of the truth, right? Like this happened. Like they say real things, but the way they frame those things, whether it be the path to get from A to B, to connect the dots, as it were, is all fabricated bullshit. It's like, it's like saying that like, oh, there's, people are dying from this thing for at 90%. And then the person that regurgitates or is lying is a really good liar will take like, okay, well, that stat, I'm going to use that stat, but I'm going to change what makes that stat happen. It's not just because of this. It is because of this, like, this narrative that I'm creating. I'm being creative in my explanation for why this thing is, why this truth is a thing. Like, my creative explanation is what justifies it, not the reality of the situation. It's this flowery, like, creative explanation for why it is. And that's what he does. Join Inspired Disorder Plus today. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus to join. Membership includes members-only discounts and deals. You get access to the Ray Taylor Show completely ad-free, as well as bonus episodes. You get access to the complete live painting archive. You also get access to every single podcast ever produced by Inspired Disorder, hosted by Ray Taylor. You get access to Ray Taylor's personal blog, as well as the opportunity to ask me any questions. So if you want to start a podcast, you're into art, ask me anything. And so many more things are being added every day to Inspired Disorder Plus. So sign up today, become a member, head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and become an Inspired Disorder Plus member today. To a point, yeah, he can groom somebody, he can get somebody into the business, he can get her into the business, but he's not going to be there for her. Once she gets into the business, which we don't see in this movie, like, it's all takes place, but that's his new host, is like, oh, there's this 17-year-old girl that he's got this thing for. He starts off by convincing her to let him sell weed to all the refinery workers out of the donut shop that she works at. It's kind of where he gets his foot in the door as far as, like, grooming her to be his new host, this parasite's new host. And as everything around him is crumbling, throughout this movie, he oversteps his bounds, flies too close to the sun, doesn't take care of the people that really should be taken care of. He's just being selfish, as always. Everything falls apart. He's like cuts and run. And even when he's about to cut and run, he gets found out because people aren't loyal to him because they know he's full of shit. So he's like starting from zero, basically, again. He's starting from a position that's not much better than when he showed up to this small town in Texas. Except for one thing. Except for his new host, which is Strawberry, the nickname for this 17-year-old girl, who is like a 17-year-old girl that's like, trying to impress this older dude by acting as if she is more mature and more experienced, because she's got a crush on him. And he's a smooth talker. He's really good at telling the story. He's really good at making himself sound good. He's good at selling himself to people. But he's selling a shitty product. Every time somebody buys into his sales pitch, they see that, oh, he's just a parasite. This is just like a vampire talking to you at your front door with this long spiel in order to convince you to invite them in. That's what he's doing. He has this huge sales pitch in order to confuse you and to make you think that he's got something valuable in order to invite him in. And once he's in, then it's hard to get him out. And a lot of the people were able to get him out. And he gets kicked out, and he's got, just, I think they gave him like $200 or $20, not a lot of money. Barely gave him his clothes. Like, he barely got out of there with anything. And like the way this movie ends is a very open-ended movie, which I kind of appreciated, right? It's not a happy ending. It's not a sad ending. It is, I would say, an open ending that fits with the whole idea, the whole reality that's going on in this guy's head of this fantasy versus reality. Like, he is so wrapped up in his own sales pitch, his own bullshit, that he doesn't understand the world that is around him. And this movie ends with him lost in that dream state. Because how this movie ends is he's standing out front, right? Gets kicked out at night. He goes to Strawberry's house waiting for her out front. They're supposed to meet up and leave to L.A. And he's standing there, and she throws open the door. Well, in his head, at no point is this what actually happened, right? There's like a dream state, a fantasy that happens at the very end of this, where Strawberry opens the door. She's wearing a bikini, and she does like a sexy dance, right? And the Bye 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 song, the boy band song Bye Bye Bye, NSYNC. I don't know which one of those two boy bands, NSYNC or the other one, and I'm blanking on the other one's name. But that Bye Bye Bye, I mean, that song is throughout. We hear it at the beginning when he's riding the bus to this small town in Texas. We hear it when Strawberry is playing the piano and singing. She has an amazing voice. Obviously, I think not only is she an actress, but she's also a musician in real life. And she has like this very unique take on the Bye 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 song, which is a very beautiful moment inside. Like, it's almost like a fly singing a beautiful song while unknowingly trapped in a spider's web. Like, it's this beautiful moment despite the fact that that she's just sinking deeper into this guy's grasp. But she throws open the door, does this sexy dance, and in my head, that's just what in his head he's imagining is about to happen as he's waiting for her to. In reality, maybe she doesn't even go. Maybe she has second thoughts. Maybe her parents come home and they find out and convince her not to. They're like, there's no way you're going to L.A. with this 40-year-old dude, this 40-year-old washed-up porn star. You're a 17-year-old. Like, she's a week away from becoming 18 or something like that. And they were going to wait for her to become 18, but things went south fast for him because he flew too close to the sun. And this movie ends with, his fantasy of what's going to happen. What he's hopeful. But that's not the reality. It's never the reality for him. So I appreciate this movie, despite the fact that he's a horrible, disgusting person. There's statutory rape happens in this movie. It's not he's not like somebody to look up to. Although there are people that would look up to him because he is such a smooth talker. People without experience or people that get lured in by these types of people, they get lured in by their stories, by their these virtuous stories of how they conquered porn or how they helped develop these porn stars into superstars, and then they play the victims like, well, but then they just left me. They left me to rot. I brought them to the summit, but they just threw me off the cliff. And it's like, once you're able to once you notice those people, those parasites, it's so easy to see their shtick, and they're all over I mean, that's Trump. Trump was that type of a person. If Trump wasn't born into tons of money and given tons of money throughout his life because he is a failure in everything. He is just as much of a failure at everything as this dude is at life, except for this dude wasn't born into wealth. They live the same type. They are the same type of person. They have these stories of epicness of how they conquered things, and yet they also play the victim when it suits them. It's really disgusting, and it's like a mentality that is so fostered in this country and so developed because of how tough it is to survive when you're poor. It is easier in some ways to become that type of a person in order to, because you see other people who are quote unquote successful. There's people, a lot of these people love Trump because he is as they are. He is what they think a successful version of that is, despite the fact that Trump would be nothing if he wasn't given money constantly throughout his life. So anyway, Red Rocket, interesting movie. I enjoyed it. It's being all the promotion for this is oh, it's hilarious comedy. Oh, it's this. It's I guess there's definitely funny moments. I consider it more of a drama. It is very, very grounded in reality. There are no gags in this. There are definitely funny moments, but it's just it's awkward moments in situations where you have this degenerate parasite trying to navigate through trying to find another host. It's not, you could, I guess, laugh at this for the wrong reasons, but I don't know. I wouldn't consider it an uproarious comedy. I would call it more of a real view of, what it's like not only being poor, not only living in a small refinery town in Texas, but also what it's like to have this vampire come into your town and start to suck the life out of it. Take the one this child, this 17-year-old girl, the one thing in this movie that's not corrupted yet. Not that she's pure, she has a dude that she has sex with on a regular basis. It is about the closest to pure you can get in a white trash situation. And he plucks that one unspoiled fruit from the tree a little too ripe. And it doesn't, we don't know, I mean, it's not going to be good. But anyway, I enjoyed the movie. I enjoy all Sean Baker's films that I've seen so far. I really want to go back and watch his older films and do potentially a top 5 of his. And because I kind of enjoy the grittiness and rawness and realness that he brings. And also his ability to create stuff on his own. Very similar in a lot of ways to Bo Burnham and Bo Burnham's special Inside, where he did everything on his own. I'm sure Sean Baker has a bit more of a crew than that, just doing everything on his own. But he's not afraid to create things using modern-day consumer products. Not that this one was, but he has in the past, and it's possible. So check it out, Red Rocket. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.